60s child. Hello, in this video we're looking at some of the strange oddities surrounding TV. Now straight away I can hear you thinking, what the hell's he on about, oddities of TV? But bear with me because this is going to be a fun ride. Lots of things you've forgotten about, the quirky, the odd, all to do with TVs from the 60s onward. You'd be forgiven if you thought I was going to talk about the children's shows we all loved and watched. And there was some really fantastic shows. But no, that's not really what I'm on about. This is the weird and wonderful, the quirky and the odd. So without further ado, here we go. TV detector vans, remember them? The good old sneaky BBC used to come round in them, checking on you to see if you had one of these, a licence, and if you didn't, they were going to knock on your door. Now there's lots of videos and lots of conspiracy theories that the claim they made that they could actually tell what channel you're watching and what programme, etc., is a load of bull, and they just lied to people to frighten them into submitting and buying a licence, and they're still doing it. Now I have been told that they still have detector vans, but for the life of me I've not seen one since I was a kid. Massive TV aerials, you don't see many this shape anymore. And now we've gone digital with Freeview and FreeSat and cable, etc., and fibre. You don't really need an aerial if you've got all that, so you'll never understand the frustration of trying to get one of these TVs to work. It wasn't unusual to see people on top of the roof trying to adjust the aerial for a better picture. Remember him, Roddo? Well, he fell off the roof and killed himself when he was trying to put his aerial straight. I'd have thought he'd have had enough money to pay someone to do it, but there you go. Now you could buy indoor aerials, and you still can, but the technology nowadays has moved on since these. Now come on, be honest, did your dad try this? Because my dad did, and he actually got a decent picture with it. But God knows what's going on here. Now, growing up in the 60s meant black and white TV. That's all we had. And we could only imagine what our favourite TV programmes must have looked like in full colour. So, when one day there was a big knock on the door, and it was one of those dodgy travelling salesmen who claimed he could put this thing on your telly and you'd get colour. And not only that, but it'd enlarge the picture. So my dad invited him in, and what he brought in was something similar to this, which basically was a Fresnel lens with bands of filtered colour. And yes, when he put it in front of the telly, it did make the picture look bigger, although it was very blurry, and you could see big gaps in between the lines that made the picture up. And as for watching in colour, well, what do you think? My dad was so disappointed, and when the guy told me dad the price of this thing, he told him to stick it up his and showed him the door. Now, your typical 60s room would have had your telly as the main focal point like today, but what you don't see today is pictures and ornaments on top of your telly. And this practice went right into the 70s, even 80s. I mean, bowls of flowers, doilies, they were my pet hate. Everything had to have a doily on it. At Christmas it'd be Christmas ornaments. Our Christmas tree was so small it would fit on the telly, so we used to have it on there. Yep, I think the days of putting ornaments on top of TVs are well and truly gone. Now remember these little fellas? Valves. Used to get them inside your TV. There were hundreds of different types. As a kid, if we found an old telly, we used to take them out and use them as hand grenades. Didn't have to make a pop. When you first switched on, you had to wait for these little fellas to warm up, and they did get quite hot. But what I remember about it was if you had the lights out at night, there would be an amber glow behind the TV. Next up is TV mags. Yes, we still have these mags around, but I think people buy them mainly for the stories and the competitions. I must admit, I don't buy any of these. Back in the 1960s, these were the Bibles of TV, a must-have. And at Christmas time, these were as important as the turkey. I've seen queues of women queuing up outside the paper shops waiting to get these magazines. Remember how you used to flick through them and mark up what you were going to watch over the Christmas period? Ah, those were happy days. My mum, bless her, still rings me up near Christmas and says, "Have you got your TV mags? Would you like me to get them for you?" Now, staying with the theme of TV mags, what about these magazine racks? Do you remember them? These were placed usually at the side of the chair so that you just didn't have to get up to look at what was on next. They're all different shapes and sizes. I even made one in a woodwork class at school, and I think it's safe to say there's still houses out there with these in the front room. Now your TV would have been the main focal point, as I've already said, in the living room. So you wanted it to look nice. Now some of them did come in cabinets at the early days, they were sort of built in. But most of them I remember came on legs like this, which would unscrew and you could put them on top of a cabinet. And the cabinets came in all sizes and shapes. Some had doors so you could hide your telly away. I'm not quite sure why we hid them away though. Then when videos came out, you had cabinets that you could stick a video underneath your telly in. Some were real grand affairs. Unlike a lot of furniture, some are best left in the past. And if you didn't want a cabinet, you could always buy one of these stands. Interludes, remember these? I remember these, and most of them were in the 50s, but they ran right up to the 70s, I believe. Do you remember them? Let me know in the comments. Oh, and by the way, if you're interested, I've put a link in the description to the BBC website where you'll find all these interludes and you can watch them at your own leisure. It's worth a visit just to see the toy one. I'd forgotten about this one, but it's got some cracking toys on it from the past. Have a look. Yes, I know you're going to say, well, they still have idents today. But these are like old friends from the past, and I just thought I'd include them. Do you remember them? They were regional, a lot of them, and you don't get regional very much anymore. Now, I lived in the Granada region, but as a kid, the Anglia and the Westward Holes were my favourites. And no one can forget this, the test card. Remember it? Public information films. You don't see many of these days either. Now in the early 60s, these weren't too bad, they were quite tame. But as they got into the 70s, wow, they were a bit gruesome, some of them. This one still makes me cringe. The last place to leave a bottle is on a beach. Some were quite fun, like this one. But a lot of them had a scary message to portray. Who can forget Tufty and his pals? And what about Joe and Petunia? Hey, it smashed right up a tree. Then there was Charlie Says with that weird cat. The firework ones were always a bit shocking. Imagine showing kids programs like this today. They'd be hell to pay. And what about the infamous Jimmy Savile? Clunk click. And why not put your kids in the pool with this fella? Two little boys. Say no more. There was this one about keeping away from water because it's dangerous. Boy, was that one freaky. You see, them days, if they traumatise you to keep you safe, well, that was alright. Wouldn't happen today. They showed us what had happened if we brought rabies back into the country. And a really strange one about AIDS. Even ones about how to survive during a nuclear war. And who can forget Green Cross Man? Never cross near parked cars. We had pop stars like Alvin Stardust telling us how to cross the road, Kevin Keegan, the footballer. Even Doctor Who had a go. But I think the Green Cross Code Man was the best one for me. Now, if you couldn't afford to buy a TV outright, you rented one. And I know you can still rent TVs today, oddly enough. But I can remember my mum renting a TV for a while, and it had a slot on the back you put coins in. You'd get halfway through watching something and the bloody coin would go, and that'd be it. You couldn't watch it unless you had more money. Kids of today don't know they're born. I heard that when I was a kid, and it seems to be repeating itself, that phrase. Now, remote control units are taken for granted these days. But until the 70s we didn't really have remote controls, and the early ones usually had a wire you had to plug into the telly, so you couldn't go very far with them. I mean, look at the state of this one, it looks like a radio. The buttons were massive on the things, and you were very limited to what you could actually do with it apart from change channels. Now sometime in the 80s my son bought one of these, a watch that turns the telly over. Oh, he had loads of fun changing the channels for the neighbours from outside their houses, watching them get up in frustration, banging the telly and everything. Now computer games today are very realistic, like this Call of Duty, but the first real gaming consoles looked like this, and state-of-the-art graphics like this. They did progress, and we had Space Invaders. I remember people queuing up in the local pub to have a go on this. My younger brother was lucky enough to own one of these. The Atari boasted amazing graphics. That was a laugh. But as time went on, they did get a little bit better. And speaking of graphics, who remembers this? Teletext. And CFAX, of course. Come on, own up, did you ever win at Bamboozle? There was everything and anything on these pages. You could book holidays and everything. They were amazing. Sadly, they've now disappeared. But they have been replaced with a modern equivalent, so we can't grumble. Well, sadly, that's it. That's the end of this little video. I hope you all enjoyed it, and I hope it brought back some memories. Let me know in the comments. Anyway, for now, stay safe, and I'll see you later. 60s child.